Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
Me, Jackson White.
And welcome to part 4 of our 4-part special here with Mike Evans. Great to have you on again, Mike.
Good to be back.
4th evening in a row. So appreciate you giving up your time. So we're talking today about Swiss Army Ninja and specifically versatility. So do you want you to kick off for that then, Mike?
Sure. So the Swiss Army Ninja concept started a year or two ago for Skillz members. And the idea was there's a lot of things that we tend to fight against in our industry. So one of the big ones is sports seasons, right? Baseball season or football starts. Everybody leaves and they go play for 3 months and then they come back. And during that 3 months, we're left hanging financially. We lose our students for a while, so we lose that relationship. So the mindset shift became, instead of fighting against these things, because it's really difficult culturally to overtake, how can I work with it to better entrench myself in the lives of my students and to keep my business viable during those traditionally slow months? So we came up with this concept of, a Skillz Gold member right now gets access to something like 17 or 19 programs.
Tons of programs.
Tons.
It's quite overwhelming sometimes, isn't it, when you look at the...
Look, I do this every single day, and there's times when I go on the website to find something, it's like, oh my God, there's so much here. So our goal was to take that so much and apply it in so many ways. So, for example, in our marketing and our business applications for Skillz, we're not a marketing platform, but we do provide marketing guidance and marketing content as far as content marketing, I guess is our venue. So what we did was we set up a system, just like we spoke about in one of the previous interviews, that we call the multi-use method of marketing. And the idea is that any one piece that I create, we each have our preferred element. You guys love the podcast. I'm more about the live video. Some people may be about blogging, which I also enjoy. So what we did was we said, anywhere in your cycle of things, you can have an entry point. For me, it might be live video or blogging, but then I take that one piece of work that I've done and I pull it apart and put it back together so that it fits YouTube, Facebook, my blog, my local news site, press releases, courses that I'll sell, content for my groups. So from any one unit of work, I get 5 units or more of result. And if it doesn't match that threshold, then it was time I didn't spend very well in the first place. So then the next step was we took that to, well, if it works for marketing is just a system, Skillz is just a teaching system. So we did the same thing with our Storm team and with many of the different skills with an S that we have within Skillz with a Z programs, such that now, for example, when soccer season or football season for you guys starts, instead of fighting against it or complaining that, oh, business is so slow and these guys keep stealing my students, well, I am now an integral part of that soccer team's ability to restart their season. How? Well, I reached into my Swiss Army Ninja bag, and one tool now has multiple different tools I can use. And I went into my core skills program and I pulled out perseverance, I pulled out technique, and I pulled out agility. 3 skills that are related to martial arts, but really transcend. And we came up with a course that I am able to go in and teach for either an hour or maybe 4 weeks to supercharge the return to soccer so that now that team hits the ground running with amazing abilities to excel on the field. And now I'm not the enemy of soccer. I am the source of their success. I've taken what I already have done and modified it to work differently.
Mike, that is a great philosophy. Just talk some our listeners through, how did you engage with I'll call it football because only Americans call it soccer. Sure. How did you engage with the football teams, the coaching staff, or the management of the group, and put your proposition forward to them?
Sure. So one of the challenges I think we have as martial arts business owners, this is our own personal hurdle to overcome, is we often think about how many students does it take to bring in X amount of money. And then I take that thought and I go to my public school or the football coach or whomever, and I say, look, man, I got this thing to sell you. And it closes that door really, really quickly. So we always start with why. Why do I want to get in with that football team? Why do I want to get into the public schools? Is it because I just want to get more students and get more money? Well, yeah, that's part of it. Let me be honest. I'm not going to turn away students and money.
It has to be bigger than that, though, doesn't it? I think the overall picture has to be bigger than that. Yeah,
it certainly does. So, we talked about my core values a while back was what's best for the students. So if I know that my student is going to be involved in these activities, well, I want to set them up for success and really help them have a good time. So the first step in this is, if little Johnny joins the local football team, see, I almost said soccer, the local football team, instead of being upset at little Johnny's parents for not being committed, I ask little Johnny's parents, can you please let me know when the first match is so that I can come support little Johnny? Now I'm like the fringe, right? I'm on the outside looking in, but I'm there. And now maybe I get to meet the coach after little Johnny scored his first goal. And I introduce myself. And I let the coach know, hey, I'm going to be here a couple times. Anything you need to work on with him, let me know. And we'll reinforce it as I see him in martial arts, regardless of whether he's coming or not at the moment. So it starts with that relationship of I'm there to provide for him. Let me help you. And then the next step becomes, as you have to work through relationship skills and get in with the coach friendly a little more, and be tactful about how you provide pointers. If you walk in and say, your team would be much better if you did this, well, that's going to shut that door too. Mm-hmm. But if you go in saying, hey, I noticed this is how we do it in my school. Do you think that might be valuable for you? Let him provide the yes or the no. And then just slowly, little by little, it takes the season of creating that relationship. And at the end of the season, it would be awesome. I know here in the States, what we do is at the end of seasons, they have the little awards ceremony where usually you get together in the local pizza place or the ice cream parlor or something like that. Host that at your school. So now they're coming to your school, the entire team, seeing the team. You're making friends with the coach again. You're providing him value and service. At which point you can say, hey, I know sometimes when they come back to martial arts, it takes me a little while to get them back into the flow, even though they've been training with you for a few months. It's just a little different. Do you see the same thing? They're going to say, yeah, that first couple of weeks of practice is rough. How about this? Why don't I put together a 1-hour seminar for your team? I'll come down and do it for free. And then next season, that's how we start off. Then you can leverage that into bigger and bigger things. But it has to be about providing value and using your expertise to help him. In return, you'll probably pick up a few students from it.
Sure.
Okay. It's quite interesting, really. I mean, how long are the seasons? So I know, obviously, I know you're using football as an example, but presumably is it baseball and what sort of sports do you tend to lose your students to?
Usually it's the stereotypical male-driven sports that kids think they are going to either get scholarships for or that they're going to become professional athletes. So you get the baseball, basketball, football, soccer,
American football, yeah.
American football, or European football. And then every now and then you'll get the odd bowling team person. I haven't been able to crack that code yet.
About ice hockey, because ice hockey is quite a big sport for you guys, isn't it?
Not so much in my area, maybe off more in the Midwest. But yeah, ice hockey would be a good one, especially with the contact element. I started martial arts because one of my role models was Lynn Swan, who was a very famous American football player. And he was known for being fast and nimble and agile. And anytime they asked him, how did you do this? Well, because he took ballet. So I started in ballet and couldn't hack it. And then I moved over to martial arts because it gave some of the same benefits. And in fact, many American football players now do study martial arts, sanctioned by their team in their team's professional venue because of the contact and the redirection of force, the balance. So there's a lot of opportunity there if you got to look at it the right way.
Sure.
Yeah, so maybe not so much of the ballet for the American footballers then.
It's funny. I actually quit ballet because I couldn't handle the French, and then a few years later, I went on to become a French major in high school. So,
which other areas would you apply that to? So we talked about applying it into marketing. You talked about applying it from your class. What other areas within the Skillz syllabus have you looked to leverage that and take that toolkit and pull out another 5 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 key areas that you've pivoted with?
Sure. So the first one is the easiest, which is we have this program called Parent Skillz that's available to all Skillz members. And it's designed to be used in your private Facebook groups for your members. Just a value add. It sets you up as an expert. It provides parents some great information. But what we've done is we've taken that a step farther, and we've created community groups around it. So not just my group, but now I'm actually teaching community groups around Parent Skillz. Has nothing to do with martial arts. Something like 2% of the American population is interested in martial arts training. 100% of parents are probably interested in becoming better parents.
Sure, yeah.
So by taking this information and just changing the venue a little bit, along with doing community talks at the libraries or at teacher conferences, I haven't been able to make it an official continuing education thing yet, but something I'm working on. It really sets you up as a renowned expert in the field of childhood development, which is far broader than martial arts. So now local schools, when asked about, how do I deal with this with little Johnny? I got this great guy. He teaches karate, but he's also a childhood development expert. So now I start to get all these referrals from educators, child psychologists, personal trainers, physical therapists. So my knowledge base has shifted to a different venue, multi-use. The next one, going back to teachers, is that Skillz was based on a lot of scientific concepts. It wasn't just cobbled together or drawn from personal experience. It is based 100% on science and psychology. Because of that, it is very easily integrated into the classroom. So one thing that I've done in the past is gone in and spoken to kids in the classroom, but not about martial arts. We talk about things like the physics of moves. Obviously for the older kids, they're studying momentum and angular momentum and velocity. Well, I can demonstrate that by doing some basic throws or breaking some boards, but leveraging it as a skill-based concept. I can do things where I work with kids that they're not underprivileged, but they're right on the border there between their financial situation, or maybe they're right on the cusp of needing special education services. They have programs for them in the regular public schools. It's an area where I can go in, and because my specialty is in assessing each unique child's stage of development and then modifying what I teach so that it fits their needs, We're able to go in and work with these children with great levels of success, which gets me into the public schools. Here in the States, at least, it is very difficult to get into a public school. They're so protective of the students by rights.
Okay, so why is that then, Mike? So why are they so? Obviously, I appreciate that the parents are paying a lot of money to get them into those schools. And what's the sort of go-to sport? Presumably, it's American football and all these other sports that you talked about. But do they tend to have their own dedicated instructors or dedicated martial arts syllabuses within these schools? Are they afraid? What do you think it is they're afraid of from having maybe an outside teacher coming in?
Honestly, it's that we've shot ourselves in the foot. Martial arts has a high level of perception that we are used car salesmen, insurance salesmen. We'll do anything to get a student to sign up. We're going to sign your 18-month-old up on a 5-year contract, and then we're going to nickel and dime them and sell them this patch this week and this book next week. So we've done ourselves a disservice in the past. We definitely needed to bring sales into our conversation.
Sure.
But for a while, it was the only tool that we had. And I think we as an industry, shoe fits, wear it kind of thing. As an industry, we took it too far. So if I walk in wearing my gi and say, "Hi, my name is Mike. I'd like to come teach karate classes," all they're thinking is, "Look, you're just trying to poach my students." And that's not what we're about. So going in like this with the giving hand and demonstrating our ability to not just teach martial arts, but to use martial arts concepts and lessons in so many different ways, purely for the benefit of the children, it sidesteps some of that that perception of us.
Okay, just touching on that point. I know I'm deviating a little bit from the topic, but talk to us about. So you talked about the contracts that they use, 5, 6, 10-year contracts or whatever. Because obviously contracts are not big in the UK. I know certainly in myself and Jackson's school, we have like a month or maybe 2 months notice period. There's no sort of tie-ins. I know there's a lot more bigger schools that do have maybe a year contracts. Maybe more than that, but anything over sort of a year really is not that widely heard of. Would you agree, Jackie?
Yeah, most definitely. I think again, it depends on your organisation, whether you're independent or your organisation. But certainly, the organisation that we belong to, that I think is one of the benefits. We're quite mindful of the fact that we don't really want to forcefully tie people in, because we've seen a lot of that bad press from where we've seen people trying to introduce those types of systems into the UK, and before they know it, their child doesn't like it after 2 months, and they've got the parents on a string for 12 months. So certainly, the organisation that we belong to, I wouldn't say they frown upon it, because ultimately you can do that, but certainly our best practice is to maybe have a month period maximum.
So, it's a big debate here in the States, and there are proponents on both sides. You need contracts, otherwise everybody's going to quit in the summer. Well, my answer is, well, that's because your program is horrible and people want to go to the beach. You have to change your mindset a little bit. So contracts for me do serve a purpose. If you're looking at going and getting bank financing for something and you're not an established business, if you're looking to get investors or something like that, contracts are really good because it shows that you have contractual obligations for that cash flow to continue coming in.
Sure.
If you're an established business with positive cash flow and you can produce your books and everything is in order, I think that's a little less important. I tend to fall in the middle. In my school, I do it's a month-to-month program. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. My school is full enough. So we do a month-to-month with a 30-day notice. We don't have huge drop-off outside of pandemics sweeping across the country. I have used contracts in the past, and the only real reason that I used contracts was just because of the psychology of the sale. It made it really easy to make a sale, even with a contract, when I presented you 2 options that were really cleverly crafted to guide you towards the one that I wanted. and it provided an annualized amount. So it was more of a convenience for selling. I no longer do them. I don't see the need for them for me personally.
Yeah. But you're right. You have to address it in the right way, and it has to be businesslike. At the end of the day, they have to. Profit is not a dirty word, and you do have to get the parents to understand. That this is my job. I do need to have I do need to have a level of commitment, because you're absolutely right. Otherwise, if you don't have that commitment, all of a sudden the summer months come, or little Tommy Tucker turns around and says, "Oh, well, I don't want to go at the moment, and I don't want to do it this week," and you realise it's because there's a grading or a testing coming up, and they get a bit nervous, and they've got to get over that. And I think you do have to have some sort of level of time. I absolutely agree with that. It's just interesting what you're saying, and like I say, about these really sort of big contracts, really.
Yeah, it's while I don't have a problem with contracts, I do believe that ethically, in the business that we're in the education business, I'm not in the martial arts business, I'm an educator. It has to be about balance. So any contract that I use, we write it up and then put it away, and then I have to revisit it, because a contract has to have equal protections and benefits for me and for the other party, for me to feel it's ethical.
Sure.
I am highly against these really hardcore contracts where people are, you're suing the parents of a 2-year-old because they didn't take all 5 years of your program, and you want your money even though you're not providing services. I'm not really enthused by that.
Sure.
But people
like
do.
You say, you got to have I'm sure they do. Yeah, not always the best practice.
No.
Okay, so going back to the Swiss Army Ninja. So we've touched on the marketing side, how it can be utilized for and repurposed, and all these different social media aspects, the podcasting, the live video, the blogs. We've talked about how it could be utilized within your school and your syllabus, and working with external clubs such as football and alike. So how else, in terms of versatility, then how else could we use? What other sort of business applications, or how else could, within your business, how could you use that sort of Swiss Army approach, do you think?
Great question. And this is actually something that we're revisiting in my business right now. So there are certain things in your business that you do a lot. For us, one of the things is our pre-evaluation process. Nobody comes into my school without going through a Skillz evaluation. One of the things that we don't do very often, which means it's very hard to get good at, is hiring employees. So we sat down and we really looked at the two processes, and we decided that aside from the end product, all of the steps that we're creating going through these two different processes are exactly the same. So now we're able to look at our hiring process, take out the details, but keep the framework, the bones of the system, and create a brand new enrollment process for new students. And instead of having to start from the beginning and say, well, what do we want to have happen? I already have all that documented and planned out. I just need to now say, well, how does that apply to Johnny 5-year-old? So just to give you some insight, what we're doing in my school is we're no longer a sign them all up kind of school. We are exclusive. We are not exclusive in the sense of we turn people away, but we're exclusive in the sense that it's a little difficult to get into my school. So first, you have to apply. If your application is accepted, we'll send the parents a questionnaire. So we learn a little bit more about them as parents as well as the child. Then we'll have a meeting where we meet the parents and the child. If that goes well, we will evaluate the child. If that goes well, they will do not a trial, because I do not like trials in my business. We will do a mandatory, the word escapes me. what do you call it when you start a new job? And probationary. We'll
Probation
start a
period.
probation period where you'll come in and try a certain amount of group classes so I can see how you work in the group environment, how the parents are. And each of these steps are designed to filter out so that I only get the exact students that match what I do. They're a good fit for my business and I'm a good fit for them.
Would you say, Mike, sorry to start you mid-flow, would you say that it's also an evaluation of the parents?
Oh, 100%. We already watch the parents very closely when we evaluate the child. Are they a sideline screamer? Don't want them. Are they a yeller? I told you to do this. Don't want them.
Helicopter.
They're not the right fit. Yeah, helicopter. Are they using punishment instead of discipline? Because there are two very different concepts. We want the discipliners. The ones who are disciplined means to teach, right? So we want the ones who are teaching. So when we were looking at this, we realized that it's almost exactly the same as what we do with our hiring process. So we just took the hiring process and turned it into our enrollment process and just plugged in what was missing. Now, in exchange, because I do these evaluations fairly regularly, this is how we fill our school. Now, when I have to hire somebody, I don't have to fumble around and find the document and go, oh my God, what was that question I used to ask? And what do I say next? And I've already been practicing it. I just changed the words a little bit. So this concept of, the Swiss Army knife has a lot of tools. The tools just do slightly different things, so it's the same sort of thing. My tool is this core process within which I make it do a couple different things.
How, so obviously you do your evaluation. How has your marketing spend changed? Because obviously I'm assuming, obviously, 'cause again, it's a numbers game at the end of the day, isn't it? So you get, if you're looking for, I wouldn't say someone who's a specific individual, but you're looking for, I guess, a type of student and a type of family to a degree, aren't you? So what I suppose I'm getting to. So again, you get 100 people through your door, for instance. How many of them are going to be a fit for your school? I suppose that's maybe put into percentage wise, maybe.
Sure. So, I try to do a lot of that filtering with the voice that I use for my marketing. I'm not appealing to certain elements just because of the things that I say. The United States is very politically polarized. So I can state my opinion and that eliminates half the people that I don't want.
Okay.
One way or the other.
all you've got to do is have a picture of Trump in your academy, and then
it's really easy to attract half the population. From there, we very tactfully and subtly, but also clearly state certain things. We don't believe in physical punishment of children. That eliminates another half. So my marketing filters out a lot. Some of the hoops that have to be jumped through, they're action indicators. So if they don't fill out the proper form, well, they filtered themselves out. They just don't go any farther in the process. So what we've had thus far is by the time they get to the point where they come into their evaluation, I would say about, and I don't have the exact number in front of me just because it's been a while since we have normal business going on. I would say about 80% end up being the people that we want. And then out of those 80%, because we are the people that they want, we have something like a 98% close ratio by the time they get to that point. And then knowing all those numbers each step of the way lets me backtrack what my marketing spend will be. We average probably around $600 a month on a marketing spend, which is not a ton of money compared to what some people are spending.
No, and presumably your retention rate is far higher than what it would have been if you had not gone through that process. So again, when you're talking in terms of costs for market spend, you're looking at the lifetime of that student, aren't you? That's really what you need to be thinking in your head when you're budgeting for that marketing.
Sure, and that's a great idea. So what we look at is not only just the conversion rates, which are important, but any number in isolation is just a number. It's very easy to say, well, I have 98% conversion but I only had 2 students come through the door.
Yeah, and they leave the month after.
Yeah, they leave a month after. So, what we look at is the stick rate, which is how many of those people stick around, and then the stick time, for how long do they stick around. So our retention numbers tend to be, so let's see, we're at around a 90, doing math off the top of my head again. That's why I'm a martial artist, not a math teacher. We're something like 98, 99% retention. So we don't have to put on a lot of students. Obviously, that's a number in isolation, and next month it might be far lower or higher, So our stick time, whereas the average student in the average martial arts school, at least in the United States, is somewhere around 8 months, our stick time is just over 2 years. So it saves me so much effort in the long run. It's harder up front, but in the long run, it saves me a lot of effort, a lot of time, and it makes that student value go up as well.
Okay, so what would you say to instructors? Because obviously you've been on both sides of this. As obviously, if you listen back to Mike's podcast interview with us, they'll find that out. But obviously you were not always in that position, were you, Mike? You used to be in a position where you used to have a school where pretty much anyone used to walk in, used to take them in. And how do the two
methods?
Yeah, the two methods and types of schools, differ really?
Sure. So our filtering process used to be, if you could survive the first class, you could keep coming. We were an old school.
We remember the candles on the chair, Mike. The candles on the chair. See how low you could get.
No, I mean, the first class used to be come in and you'd sit them in horse stance for half an hour, and then we would beat them up. We didn't have gear back then, and you just fight. So all those guys that would come in, I got my own style. I invented it in my mom's basement. All right, let's go. So we had a lot of people coming through because we used to sell based on price. We used to say we were real martial arts. And if you're listening to this, you can't see me making the air quotes, but real martial arts, which means everybody else is fake martial arts. We were real martial arts, and we were the cheapest around. And you get the cheapest students around, people that want to come in and cut deals, not pay, not train regularly. They whine about everything. Oh, you want me to pay for testing? I don't need a new uniform. I'm going to wear my mom's wool gloves instead of sparring gear. All these kinds of people that come in like that. It's not that they're bad people. It's just not who I want to run my business off of. Yeah. And then the other side of it would be you finally get them in and you sign them up for $50 a month or some ridiculously low rate. And then a month later, they quit because, you're not real martial arts. They're just the wrong mindset type of people. Compared to today, where before you ever even meet me, we know we're the right match for each other. Of course, within limits. And then when you do meet my team and you realize how much they care, because it's not just about money, how much they care about your child and help your child, we become part of your family, and you don't leave family.
It's funny because we was just myself and Jackie were on a call this afternoon, a 2-hour call, and the chap who was doing the event, he talks about deal flow. Now, deal flow obviously can mean different things for different things, but I suppose deal flow is a bit like your marketing. It's like the more people you keep getting through the door, the more pick you've got to get the right people. And it's almost like, the same thing when you're trying to recruit staff. If you put an ad out and you get 3 people want the job, and the first one turns up drunk, okay, the second one doesn't show up, and you go, okay, well, we'll take the third one, right? And so you're not necessarily getting the right people. And it's the same really with your school, isn't it? You need to be bringing in enough people so you can really make sure that you interview them and you get the right people for the right fit for your school, as you would your members of staff, I suppose.
Yeah, an old mentor of mine, he used to say that if you're signing up 100% of people that walk through your door, but you're only signing up 5 people per month, those are the people that would have signed up anyway. They were already sold either because you're what they wanted, or they were already sold because of some weird thing that was going on in their head, or you were the lowest bidder, whatever it is. You didn't really sell them. They were already there. So what he had us work on was we looked at our goals and numbers and worked backwards. So I look at how many students do I lose each month, because everybody does. Then how many do I need to replace? How many do I need to add to meet my goal? All right, so let's say I need 10 new students. How many trials? What's my close rate on a trial? 50%? Well, that means I need 20 trials to come through. Well, how many people do I talk to get 20 trials? Well, I talk to 50 to get 20 trials. So then how many people do I have to have in my, see in my website to get 50 people to talk to me? Well, I need 1,000 people. And once I have those numbers, then they're easily scaled. Let's say this month I want to put on 20 students. Well, I do enough ad spend to now get 2,000 people to see my site. And it really lets me make informed decisions about my spending habits. And it also then casts a much broader net to find those people that maybe they are a good fit. I wasn't talking to them the right way before. Now I'm finding them, and they'll start trickling down through that process.
But it's great that you can measure that now, isn't it? I mean, myself, me and Jackie did a podcast yesterday. Obviously, we released it this morning, and was talking about on that podcast about measuring and metrics and things like that. And these days, you can track everything. You can track the hole in your bucket, can't you? All the way through the path from when you first put out a marketing campaign and you get those students landing the top of your funnel, to how many people eventually walk into your school, to how many sign up. It can all be tracked. It can all be measured, and you can get those metrics. And like what you said, once you've got those, the universe is a funny thing, isn't it? Once you have those metrics, it tends to keep replicating itself, doesn't it? Over and over again. Because you've
got visibility, because you know. I don't think it just does it out of luck. It's because you know where to tweak and where to adjust to address those challenges in your metrics.
And it takes.
But if you don't measure it, you can't see it.
Yeah, it takes the fear out of it too. If you're like, oh my God, I lost 5 students. Okay, I lost 5 students. Let me pull out my calculator. This is how much I have to spend, and within 6 weeks, I'll have those 5 students back. It makes it really data-driven rather than ego or emotion-driven.
Yes.
And it also lets you, as the martial arts school owner, looking at us as consultants or as mentors, it lets you smell the bovine fertilizer, so to speak. Where if I start saying, oh, well, I get 1,000 trials every month. Okay, good. How does that relate to how many students you have? How does that relate to how much money each student is worth? So it's important for you as the consumer to also look at us as the provider and have these metrics in mind.
I love that. I love that bit where you said about taking the fear out of it, because you're absolutely right. And we've all been through that. We all go through that fear of, especially at the moment with the COVID situation. You sort of, at the moment, we're not really recruiting many students, but we are losing them month and month and month. We're losing, aren't we? As most industries, I wouldn't even say martial arts industry, most industries, across the world at the moment, are in that declining rate, aren't they? But if you can turn around and you can think, actually, I don't need to worry about that. It's just a number. It's just a metric. And like you say, you put a bit more money in the pot. Okay, you know that your funnel's working, and you know that this is what's going to drop out the bottom.
Sure.
Like I say, if you can take that fear out of it. So.
That's not to be flippant and say just throw money at it. I know a lot of people are on tight budgets, but if you have measurements and $5 or £5, right? You can look at those measurements and figure out how best to use those £5 to get £6 back. Then you just continue. You multi-use it like that. Like today was supposed to be about. You multi-use that so that now you turn that £5 into 10, and then you turn that 10 into 100, and you turn that 100 into 10 new students that you needed, and now problems are solved. It just might take a little longer. That's all.
Okay, Mike, we're going to wrap it up there. So just as a quick 30-second summary for us on the Ninja Toolkit, or the Ninja Swiss Army knife, sorry.
Yeah, should be Ninja Samurai sword, shouldn't it?
The Ninja Swiss Army Samurai sword. So you have to look at your business and everything that you do that you're good at. And then you have to also look at what are your challenges and what are the challenges of those around you, and figure out how many different ways you can use everything that you do to support as many people as possible, starting off in a very giving mindset and then eventually reaping those benefits. Remembering that every single unit of work that you do should result in at least 5 units of result.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good takeaway.
Okay, Mike. Again, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been great talking to you again, and I'm sure our listeners will, draw on your experiences and our experiences, and help them through or help them restart as we get through this lockdown.
Yeah, best of luck with that. We're actually starting our reopen on Wednesday, so it's exciting.
Right. Yeah, good luck. Fingers crossed.
Nice,
and no doubt
nice to get those doors open.
all the pre-work.
Yeah, I like the colour theme, by the way, Mike. I know our listeners can't see it.
But the pink, white, and blue.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you, Mike. Catch up with you soon.
Lovely. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care.